that manufacturers could use. Nordson Corporation flew in their nanofiber expert from Atlanta, Georgia, specifically to talk at this conference. We had other people at the conference, kind of interesting. Bioplastics here in North Ridgeville on Mills Road. They use nanotechnology. Many people don't know it. Okay? They were making some belting material, plastic belting, that was used for the military. The military wanted to be fire retardant. They couldn't make it fire retardant. They tried everything. So Frank Bourne, who was running the company at the time, went up the road to Avon Lake, to Poly 1. And he talked to David Jarvis, who heads up the R&D department at the time. And he told David what he was looking for. David came back with some nano clays. And to hear Frank tell the story, he put a pinch of this fairy dust. And they call it fairy dust because you really couldn't see it. It's very, very tiny. It made the product fire retardant. So here's an example of two Lorain County companies working together with technology. You know, the nano clays wouldn't do Poly 1 any good unless they could sell them to our friends in Bioplastic. Bioplastic couldn't sell this product unless they got this technology. So, you know, that's kind of how this stuff kind of goes together. We also put on an Exporting for Survival seminar. Okay, there's a lot of work that could be done with manufacturers to help them export internationally. And basically, it's very simple, except what I try to do with this conference is to make it a little bit different. Instead of telling them step 1, step 2, step 3, what we did was we tried to show them by actually having 3 small companies in the area that have been very successful, okay, in exporting, to tell them what they did and how they did it. And it was kind of interesting because one of the companies was a screw machine company. The president was coming in. He said, John, he says, I'm here at this meeting, but he says, I can't export anything. He said, you know what I make? I make screws, hardware. You know, my competition is the world. So I looked at him and I said, that's interesting, Bruce. I said, see that young lady over there? She's going to be a speaker today. She works for Plidco. Plidco is a small company in Wesley. They make pipe clamps that are used in oil lines, gas lines. Okay? When the Prudhoe Bay pipeline sprung a leak, they called Plidco. Plidco made the custom-made clamps for them. 70% of Plidco business is exported around the world. So I said to Bruce, Bruce, what do you make? He said, hardware. I said, what do you think goes in every pipe clamp? Hardware. I said, maybe you can't export directly, but maybe you can export indirectly by selling to them. He looked at me, he says, I never thought of that. So you see what we have to do? We have to help, you know, this existing manufacturing base. And we try to do this with quarterly meetings. So I have quarterly meetings that are held at the Spitzer Conference Center, and we basically try to bring technology to bear, and we also bring some other financial, you know, expertise to bear to help these small companies. Manufacturing in Lorain County is kind of interesting. You all hear that 80-20 rule? Well, we have an 80-20 here in Lorain County too. 80% of the companies in Lorain County have 20 or fewer people that work there. What does that tell you? They don't have the infrastructure of the big companies like the Ridge Tools, the Bendixes. They're small companies that need help in various areas. And what very often happens is they go down for the second time, they're going down for the third time, before you know it, they're drowned. Okay? There isn't any entity that seems to be able to help these folks. So that was one of the voids I saw, and I said, you know, the Manufacturing Council can help this void. So that's very, very important, I think, if we're serious about making this thing work. What does it take to be successful in manufacturing today? Basically, you need 3 things. You need vision, you need technology, and you need knowledge. If you're missing one of those things, guaranteed you're not going to be successful. It just won't work. The other thing you have to do is think out of the box. 4 years ago, when we started the council, there was a Chronicle editorial. And basically the Chronicle came out and said, Lorain County, wake up. Manufacturing is dead. Get with it. Okay? The service is where we have to be. And you know what my comeback to that was? If everyone works in a restaurant, who can afford to eat in a restaurant? Okay? We can't say that manufacturing is dead. We have to do something to make sure it doesn't die. Otherwise, you're going to continue this economic malaise. Okay? We also have to take politics out. okay? You know, after being in business basically for 1 year, we had a successful Nano conference that was held in conjunction with Nano Week in Cleveland. We had the successful exporting seminar. So I went back to the commissioners and I said, here's everything I've done for the first year. We'd like to get funding at a reduced level for the second year. They wouldn't give it to us. Why? One commissioner leveled with me. You know what? You're the wrong party. And I looked at them, I said, you know what? Jobs doesn't recognize a D or an R, okay? That's unfortunate. But I tell you, I felt that strong about what I was trying to do. I kept it going. So I've been doing this now for 3 more years pro bono. I do not get paid for what I'm doing, okay? I just feel that strong that we've got to do this for survival for this area, okay? That's what I want to do. I want to make us survive manufacturing. So unlike the other organizations that do get funding, okay, LCMC gets no funding, okay? So keep that in mind. Interesting story. 4 years ago, after we formed the council, I went to the city of Lorain, Director of Economic Development. And I met with him and I said, I got a deal for you. I said, I'm pretty well networked, okay? I know a lot of people in a lot of areas. And here's my problem, time. If I go to call on a company, it takes me about 3 hours. And here's the deal I have for you. I've got 3 companies. One's an international company. All 3 companies are looking for suppliers, okay? They want to increase their supply base. And I said, I'd be glad to come and I'll bring this information to you. Give me a portion of your economic development person's time. At that time, they had, I believe, 3 people in economic development in the city of Lorain, okay? I said, give me a portion of that person's time. Let them go. I'll tell them who to go to. Because, you know, the neat thing about this was, one of those companies was BMW, South Carolina. I had a list of their existing suppliers that told me who they were, where they were located, and what they did, okay? And what I did is I looked at that list, and I kind of pared it down, and I looked at one particular area, stampings, metal stampings. So I took this information to Valeria, and I said, here's the deal. I'll give you this information. You give it to your person. Let them go knock on their door, okay? Let's create a paradigm shift, okay? Typically, the public sector and the private sector is like this. You know, the private sector doesn't trust the public sector. I said, why don't you change that? Why don't you go knock on their door and say, hey, Mr. Manufacturer, here's an opportunity. Don't know whether you know about it or not, but BMW is looking for your type of work. And if you're interested, here's who to talk to. How can you pass a deal like that? They did. Now, what are they doing? They're crying the blues, okay? Much of the problem that we have today here in Lorain County is our own fault, okay? You got to think out of the box. And that's what we have to get these people to do. And it's important for us to call it the way it is, okay? I think it's a simple solution, okay? We need to get people, though, that understand this to actually make it happen. Let's talk about technology, okay? A lot of good technology going on around here. Up at the college, they have a fab lab, okay? If any of you haven't been over there, you want to go to the Advanced Technology Center once they get the smoke.